We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Welcome to Meanwhile Back at the Lab with Paximus. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Whether it's the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, I am so glad you took some time out of your day to be with us. Guys, I don't know. I'm like fanboying a little bit. Seriously, I am. Because I just happen to have a special guest on this podcast, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation because this is going to be a different twist on the Study With Me community, if you will. I would love to just go straight into it, and want to actually recognize the people in the chat right now. Thank you so much for being here. Study with Sabrina. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Those people who are in blue, by the way, those are mods. So if you have a question for our special guest, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. If you have a question for our special guest, we're going to do like a special Q&A section towards the end of our conversation where we'll be taking your questions, and then our mods, like for instance, Study with Sabrina, and she'll be able to send some of those questions my way, and then hopefully we can have that Q&A time with our special guest. Guys, I am so excited. All the way from Brazil is none other than Arthur ENDO. And Arthur, I am so glad that you are here. It's so good to see you. How are you, my friend?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. It's really good to be here. I'm great. And you, Pax?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really, really good. Now, I had half a mind. I had half a mind to do the introduction in Brazilian Portuguese, and I chickened out.
Oh, nice.
I totally chickened out. I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't. It's too early.
That's
Because
the perfect
because I'm
opportunity.
learning Portuguese, and I think most people would know that, if anybody knows that I've been going to your channel for probably 3.5 weeks or so, just kind of on and off, coming and
Yeah.
going, mainly because I'm working, but I definitely have been learning a lot from you and a lot from one of our mods. Her name's Study with Sabrina. She's also from Brazil as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I am so excited to finally get to have this more, if you will, longer conversation with you where it's
Yeah.
in living color,
Yeah,
as
definitely.
opposed to just the whole chat thing. So, but before we get into just our discussion, I want to say thank you to Sarah Roberts for being here. Lyria, who is actually one of your mods on your channel. Lyria, thank you so much for being here as well. Adriel, and thank you so much, guys, for being here. It's so good to see you. And well, so in this case, Arthur, let's go ahead and kind of just dive in a little bit. Could you, for those people who may not know you, because this might be played in a replay on YouTube, and also I'm going to be uploading this to audio podcasts pretty much everywhere. Um, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you kind of got into the whole YouTube game?
Okay. Uh, Three very challenging questions.
Sorry, like we
although,
started really like
although it's a very good start point, right? It's very good.
yeah.
But I could say that I'm an artist,
Hmm.
that I am a musician,
Hmm.
and an arranger, a composer, and a guitar player. And how could I describe myself, right? It's something that isn't that easy. Like what you do is not necessarily who you are.
Yeah.
That's why I think
Mm.
this question is so challenging. And I would say that I would describe myself for the things that I love doing. I love reading. I am addicted to literature. I love music. Obviously, that's what I decided to do with my life. And I love traveling.
Hmm.
I love to get to know other cultures. I love to travel as a musician so that I can share the Brazilian culture and learn with different countries, right? And I would say that I would love adrenaline. I love challenges. I love skydiving. I love stuff that
Wow.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do, that I'm afraid of doing, but then I get to do it. And this feeling of going forward and accomplishing things that I wasn't sure if I was capable of is something that fulfills me in a very, very interesting way. I would say that I came to YouTube sort of to improve. It was a challenge to me. I
Mm.
am a musician. I have a career in Brazil. I make a living as a musician here. Now, during the pandemic, I just didn't have the possibility to give concerts, so I started giving classes. But yeah, that's what I do. But the YouTube was something that I wanted to achieve as a person,
Mm.
because I always liked to talk in concerts. I always loved to play, obviously, but I always liked to think about the concert not only as entertainment, but also as a way to inform people and to make people think about stuff.
Mm.
Especially if I'm performing abroad, I always like to bring the Brazilian music with some thought involved. Not only you're going to sit here and enjoy life for 1 hour, I want to make people think about what Brazil means, what are the references, why what I do is not the mainstream thing. Some of the things that are not only related to music, but also related to, I don't know, political stuff and social stuff and cultural stuff that goes beyond music.
Mm.
And I would say that YouTube for me was a journey in which I started just because I wanted to feel comfortable recording myself, just to be comfortable on camera, right? I am okay about giving concerts. I've been doing concerts for some years now, so I feel good on stage. But I was a bit afraid of being in front of a camera,
Mhm.
and then I started posting videos mainly to overcome the fear of being recorded, of being in a context like that in an interview with you.
Right.
And then I started posting videos about different stuff like music, learn to play the guitar. And then I started to realize that people were also interested in other kinds of reflections that had to do with art, with philosophy, with aesthetics, with
Mhm.
books. And then I started to go to another route, different from music, but also always related to my life as an artist.
Mhm.
And I kept posting like 2 videos a week, I guess, for a year, an entire year, before starting the stream. And I think that's a sort of way to summarize my journey into YouTube. And if you want, we can get to why I started the stream or something like that. Did
Actually,
I answer your 3 questions? I don't
oh yeah, no.
know.
But definitely, and I think like I'm curious. There's certain things that you just described about like skydiving. Like
Yeah.
that kind of blows my mind a little bit because like I can't you know I just can't with skydiving. It's like no, there's a reason why I'm planted on the ground right now. I can't fathom the idea of doing that. So to me, I need to ask you just as a like a side note, why
Yeah,
the
sure.
interest in you alluded to it, but why the interest in skydiving? You said there's an
Okay.
adrenaline, right?
Yeah, I love it. Like, I don't know if you already had this experience, but if you're an artist, you have to be on stage, right? Unless you just do online stuff, which is very common now. But to artists that like have a work in that they want to show people in like real life. I don't want to say real life because the online world is so real right now, right? But it's like
Right.
t- if you can look people in the eye and touch people, and then you have a completely different relationship, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and the moment you're like 3 seconds before entering the stage, the adrenaline that fills you, like there is no other feeling like it. Like
Right.
there's not even any comparison. But skydiving, that's what I think. I love
Right.
this adrenaline that comes from you being active on your possible death. That's something that is interesting because if you skydive, like there's the risk that you're gonna die, right? At least like it's a very small chance. It's
Mhm.
almost nothing. Like you
Mhm.
probably are in more danger depending on the context if you just drive away from home. But the what we think about skydiving, uh, it's there is this kind of risk involved,
Mhm.
and then you're being active in your own death. If you do skydiving, like if you enter a plane and then the plane goes up and up and up, and then you have to jump out of the plane, like you have to be extremely proactive in something that is very non natural, right? And I think the stage, although you can't die on stage, you can have a sort of symbolic death. Like
Mhm.
if you screw up, if you forget your line as an actor, if you forget the songs
Mhm.
as a musician, that means the world to you, right? Your performance, your concert, your reason to exist. If you don't deliver, it's a sort of death inside.
Mm.
So I really like this feeling of being in a situation that challenges me
Mhm.
in a very deep level, and I like to perform as much as I like to skydive, although performing involves much more preparation.
It does. I mean, there's only so much preparation in terms of the actual jump.
Yeah,
You just do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
The
Yes.
when it comes to performing on stage, that's because I know what that's like. I'm also a musician as well, and I totally understand that feeling that you're describing. There's this feeling of like it's just there's nothing to compare it to except perhaps skydiving. It's like this out of body experience perhaps might even take place. So I'm kind of curious to know. We'll get into the like study stuff in just a second, but I'm kind of curious to know because there's so many people, right, in our world right now who deal with things like anxiety and who
Yeah,
deal with this idea of being able to perform at a certain level, whether it's academia or in music,
Yeah.
or in speaking with people. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this, Arthur, because I think you, more than anyone that I can think of in terms of a performer, understands what anxiety perhaps feels like. And if maybe you don't know that, but how would you describe it to people? And then also, what are your tips for combating that anxiety that a person may feel, whether it's in a live stream such as this, or performing on stage, or public speaking, or just simply like finding some sort of, if you will, career choice or
Yeah.
path, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, that's a very good question, Pax. Um, I had to go through a process of becoming more and more confident on stage, little by little. And it is a process that it's not only uh, outside, like you have to do things to be able to reach this point of, no, it's not comfortable. You probably want to feel some kind of anxiety, adrenaline, not anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you can get comfortable about the feeling that you have when it comes.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. You will feel it. It will be uncomfortable, but you will know how to embrace it. That's the
Mm.
difference. And I think that it's a very hard thing to talk about because there is no one path. But I can share a little bit about my process.
Mm-hmm.
My first presentations were very terrifying. I was a kid. I didn't know exactly how to deal with the audience. I didn't see any purpose actually in performing. I just had to perform because the conservatory would demand some contexts. I didn't feel like performing. I wanted to play. I wanted to be a better musician.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of the stage was very weird to me in a way because that was not the reason why I was practicing.
Right.
And then I started to understand that there is a part of the profession that requires that you uh,
Yeah.
you perform, or
Just
at
a little
least
bit.
some path, right? It's something actually infinite. You can like be a producer, you can work with jingles, you can do a lot of stuff out of the stage, right, outside of the theater environment. But most of us have to perform in bars or theaters or festivals or in the streets, right? So when I understood that, I tried to develop a sort of method to make myself more comfortable doing it. And the first thing I did was starting to perform every week in a restaurant. So the first tip I would give to people that do other stuff is to try to put yourself regularly in situations in which you have to deal with the fear that you have. So if you're I don't know, very afraid of talking to your classmates, maybe every opportunity that shows up, you tell that you want to be the person to do that. Or you create small contexts in which you can do that a bit more comfortably so that you can increase the level of comfort little by little. So, restaurants was my first step, and I was terrified the first time. I brought my guitar, I brought my amp. I was like super ready to do it. I had prepared for hours and hours, and I had
Mm-hmm.
this repertoire that was finally ready. And then when I got to the restaurant and performed, no one listened. Like people didn't care at all. Like
Mm.
people would just wanted to eat. And in a way, that was very liberating. That was very okay. They don't care about what I'm doing, so I
Mm.
just do whatever I want.
Well, there's a
And
certain
so
freedom that goes with that.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because then you understand that this feeling inside you is something that is afraid of something that is not going to happen, right? You're
Mm.
afraid of something very serious that probably won't be what's going to happen. You're going to do a presentation. If you commit some mistakes, that's fine. No one's going to die for that. But the feeling that you have is almost as if you were in a war zone, right? For some people.
Yeah.
And some people actually take medicine to deal with it. So I think it's very hard to think about how you're going to surpass that, how we're going to deal with it. It's different for everyone. Of course, I advise therapy, psychology, treatment. It's always helpful. My parents are psychologists, psychoanalysts, actually,
Wow.
and I am like 100% found of the, I wouldn't call it even treatments, but the analysis sessions, because it's a way to put some light over the shadows inside you. I think about it like that. Like it's not as if you had a problem and you have to fix it. It's like you're getting to know yourself better. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And it's what I would advise, but like very practically, is if you're giving a concert, and then you can apply it to every context. Start small, like perform to your parents, perform to your sister, to one friend, then start to making it a little bit bigger. Oh, I'm going to organize a dinner here at home, and then I'm calling like four friends, and then they come. Oh, then you give this pocket show, a very small one, and then you start increasing until that you can, I don't know, play at the Christmas party, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the point in which you're performing to 30 people that you actually know, then you can go to unknown people, and then you can increase little by little until you feel a little bit more comfortable with the situation, with
Mm-hmm.
what you have to do in order to perform, even if you're nervous, because the feeling is probably not going to disappear. It
Mm-hmm.
happened in some tours with me, but because I was doing an insane amount of concerts, so it was a little bit like you end a show and then you go to another, and then take the bus and go to another. Then the adrenaline disappears a little bit, and that's bad. I find it bad, like
Mm.
because then you don't feel as excited as you were. And I feel that if you can switch from, well, I am here and I'm getting nervous, and then I am going to perform poorly, to I'm here, my heart is racing. This is adrenaline, and that's going to make me perform better. That's going to give me more energy. That's going to give me more concentration, and then I'm going to be on stage 10 times the musician I would be on my rooms. You know, that
Yeah.
kind of approach. If you try to switch the way you think about it little by little, and always trying to not look at the signs that your body gives you as something bad, but as something that is actually helping you, then you're probably going to get somewhere.
Yeah. You'll probably move forward, and nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Are you guys hearing an echo? I just want to make sure everybody can hear okay. And if you guys in the chat could let me know, that would be great, just because I hear an echo in my ears, but I don't know if everybody else does. So anyways, keeping this going, and then I'll look at the comments just real quick. So Arthur, thank you so much for just kind of explaining a little bit of your process and how that works for you, because as a musician, I've found it really difficult. I'm perhaps in a season where I've been performing a lot too, and there was this moment where I was like, it was an out of body experience, and I had to remind myself, first of all, there's no oxygen that's going up to my brain right now, because I'm not realizing, but I've stopped my breathing. And I think most of the time it's usually that people stop their breathing and they're like, I don't know why I'm so anxious, and it's mainly because you're not breathing correctly. So a lot of the musicians that I know, they tell me a good tip for people who have anxiety is to, in between bars or something, as you're looking in music, do that, and nobody would be the wiser, and that was probably one of the most helpful tips when I was younger, because I was like, well, why would you need to do something like that, playing drums or playing bass or playing guitar? Like, just go up there and play, it doesn't take much, but I think as I got older, I started to realize how debilitating anxiety becomes when you think too much about what others think of you. And
Yeah, that's a big part.
and that's what you were talking about, is like, oh, nobody cares. Nobody cares about, whether I can play or not. And so I love how you kept in mind at that moment when you were talking about it, that you had prepared this huge repertoire of music and nobody seemed to care, but it was liberating. It was freedom to be able to play anything you wanted, and I think that's wonderful to have a mindset like that, where you're like, this is why music's so powerful and it's so healing, because music is its intention behind it is to kind of relax you a little, if anything. So I'm grateful that you told me a little bit about how you go through the process, what things you're able to kind of think through, and most likely won't happen to you. You won't die on stage. You won't do it. These things won't happen. You'll feel the anxiety, but you won't like die. That's that's not going to happen. Skydiving, on the other hand, could possibly happen. So that's why when you said skydiving, I was like, I need to ask. I need to ask. Um, but tell us a little bit about the YouTube experience for your Study With Me channel, if you could, just so that we can kind of segue a little bit there. Tell us a little bit about now. I know I've been on your channel for like the last, I think it's 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, so it's about 3 weeks or so, and I noticed that you're doing this challenge, and you were talking about challenges and things like that, and you really love a challenge, and I admire that, because I think a person who does embrace challenge is willing to grow, is wanting to grow. So tell us a little bit about your Study With Me channel, what people can experience there, and what you're currently doing on that channel that perhaps makes you unique, aside from the fact that you're a musician, but what makes you unique in the Study With Me community?
okay.
And that was a heavy loaded question. That was a lot.
No, that's good. Then I can choose one, and then if I don't feel very comfortable asking the other, I just forget about it.
Yes, exactly. So the last question. Okay.
No, that's very nice. Like I started not long ago. I think today will be the I don't know, day 51 if I'm not mistaken, or I don't know, but
Or
it's
is it
like
52? Oh, 51.
and 51. Okay.
Sorry, I was like keeping tabs.
Cool. And I first heard of it through a friend. She was studying for a contest, and she told me that she was doing this. She was using a lot of different strategies, and one of them was this Study With Me idea. And at first, I thought it was really weird, and I thought, like, who would do that? First, I thought about the streamers, like, is it a kind of self-imposed Big Brother or something like that? You're
Right.
being observed by other people, and you are being watched. Let's steady. Like, isn't it a bit too much of like isn't it going too far? And my second reaction was, why would people like watch it? Isn't it too boring? And then I started to research a little bit more about it. There are a lot of articles written about it in newspapers. It got big over time, right? So I could find a lot of things. I visited some streams that were happening, and I understood that it was more than I thought it was. And I understood that there is this creation of a community that happens, and it tends to be the coolest part of it. And I understood a little bit with a fast research on the internet. And then I forgot about it for years. I didn't think about it. During the pandemic, a lot of fans, a lot of students, a lot of friends who graduated with me at university told me that they were not being able to study. They were not being able to practice. They didn't like touch the instrument since the pandemic started, because I think we tend to be very driven. If there is some event near as a concert, then we practice as hell. But if we have nothing near, like for the next year or more, like people don't get motivated enough so that they would practice, or so that they can keep a very demanding routine of work, right? So my thought was, if I take the idea that my friend told me about, stay with me, and apply this to the people who are following me on Instagram, maybe to help some of my friends, I think that could be very useful. So that because they can look at what I'm doing and not only feel motivated to be there with me, but also they can ask me things, especially the young students, the young guitar students, the people who are, I don't know, there are a lot of people now that are not musicians actually. The majority maybe of people are studying for tests, exams. Some people want to be lawyers, and there are a lot of different. There's a different kind of environment. But when we started, there were, I don't know, 20 guitar players, and they were all young and driven, and they wanted to study more, and they were not being able to do it. So I thought it was cool to try to show a little bit more of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Once I was in Japan in an exhibition, and that's very common there in a lot of different contexts. But there was this work of art, and by the side of the work of art, there was a video of the person creating the work of art, and that happened a lot of times in different exhibitions in Japan, different museums. Uh, and I'm doing exactly the same thing, but the difference is that I'm not crafting, I'm not doing anything that can be seen, right? I'm doing music. So my process of creating it is through practice and through composing and through this routine. So I thought it would be very cool to share not only the final work, the result of my practice, but also the process of making it appear, making it uh, yeah, I think it's a nice idea so that people can relate more to the work, so that people can feel more attached to the work. But I also thought it could be good to get me more motivated, because I had a lot of different periods in my life in which I dedicated myself as much or more to music than I'm dedicating right now. Uh, Before competitions, before important concerts or recordings. But I thought that I could also challenge myself to like go a little bit further this time, and I just wanted to see if I could improve in every single area of my life. And I think I'm being successful at doing that so far. I like to think it about it, Pax, as if we were composing the symphony of our lives. You know, like every day or every second of every day is a different note that you write in the symphony. And when it's done, it's only going to be repeated over and over, and you're not going to be able to change any note that you've written already, right? And I like to think about my life like that. I don't want to have any regrets about how I'm using my time. I don't want to have anything left that I could have done. You know, it's really a feeling that I want to do, to live the life that I dream, and I'm doing it right now. That's the thing. Like I'm not doing to accomplish anything or to earn more money or to like. I'm developing things that fulfill me during the process of developing them. So it's something that I'm trying to accomplish for a while. This in this format, and it's being possible now because I'm having the support and the energy of a lot of different people. I never studied so well in my life as I'm studying now.
Yeah, and you know what, I have to be honest about one thing. Oh, and I'm hearing the echo again. Sorry, I don't know if you are hearing an echo or are you good on your end?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. So, I think for me personally, like, and I love the way that you put it together. Only an artist would put that all together in a poetic way. So, and I relate to that very much. So, a lot of people are on the study with me streams, and they struggle with like motivation. They struggle with the idea of what motivation is. They also struggle with, like, I'm so overwhelmed. I have so many things that I have to accomplish, so many things that I have to do. What is one of those things that you can perhaps encourage someone because of the level of commitment that you put to something? Because as a musician, and I've listened to your music, it's wonderful music. I mean, you are by far one of the, like, maybe it's fanboying or a little biased here, but honestly, one of the best guitar playing I've ever heard. And
Thank you very much.
this is, I have a couple of friends who are musicians as well, and I listen to them all the time. They're great musicians, but like I can see the level of technical and freedom that you play with, if that makes any sense. So essentially, like, you're so well rehearsed that it allows for freedom when you play. And I think that that comes out in your music. It comes out very much on tempo, but with this, if you will, I guess, liberating, feeling. And so I'm kind of a fanboy when it comes to that. But just to say is that for those people who are dealing with motivation and or the issue of trying to get motivated, what would you say to someone who perhaps is doesn't have that mindset of, well, I don't want to have any regrets, and they do have regrets. They have so many regrets. How can they turn that around? What's something that you think they can use to kind of combat that?
Well, I think it's a very challenging question, and I won't give answers because I don't feel an authority in, I don't know, the psychology field or anything like that to say like that's how it works, that's what you should do. I don't like to impose any truths, you know. But one of the things that I think that can be helpful as not only like to have more motivation, but also to I don't know, sail towards a direction that you actually want to be in life, is to think very deeply about the things you want to do with your life, and maybe reflect if what you're doing, the path that you're going towards, is actually the place, it's actually leading to the place that you want to reach, right? Because I think the problem of a lot of people, Pax, is that they are super resistant because they don't want to follow the path that is actually that their life is taking, right? Maybe their parents have some ideas of success that they don't share, and they're studying something that they don't like. Like, I wouldn't be able to study 4 hours a day of law or engineering. I don't know. It's something that I wouldn't be capable of. I only can study 12 hours a day every day because I do what I love. That's like the first thing that you have to think. Like,
Mm.
think about your life in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. Like, are you going to be happy if you go towards the path that you're going to? And I think that's the first thing you have to think. Like, it doesn't matter if other people are going to be mad if you take another route. It doesn't matter if you're going to be poor for a while. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to take the risk because otherwise, like, what you're doing here, right? We,
Well, it's true. It's
we're
true.
doing.
And I think, well, you know what? I think what you're explaining is really reaching the people who are watching and perhaps even the people who are listening. I think that's such relatable information because it really does kind of, I mean, if you're not happy doing something, perhaps do you need to just move on and pursue something that you really will love to do? Like, for instance, me, I hate mathematics. As a matter of fact, when I'm on my channel, I usually say, like, math, ew, why would you do that, It's just like I can't even fathom the idea of doing math for more than 2 seconds, um
It's a lot,
like, I know,
really.
like, 2 plus 2. You know what? I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to go there. But all I'm saying is, like, it's just, and it's ironic that I'm a musician too. But but all I'm saying is that I can't fathom the idea of doing, studying for 4 to or even 12 hours on a subject that I'm not passionate about. Now, I know for those people who perhaps have to do general education first, if they're in college, or junior high and high school, they have to do a little bit of each. That's fine. But we're talking in terms of, like, longevity. Like, what are we passionate about? What do we want to actually accomplish? Well, if we are truly passionate about something and we can identify that, if we can identify what we're passionate about, shouldn't we just go towards it? Or are we trying to, and quite honestly, and I'm speaking to myself and almost preaching to myself a little bit, because it's a little bit of like, well, I want to pay bills, or I want to be able to do this before I get here, because this is my train of thought. I'm able to get to where I want to as long as I keep to this route. But perhaps that's not the best way to do it. Maybe it's good to just go straight into it. And I think that's why I admire artists such as yourself, who identified right away that this is a gift that you have, that you want to use, and that you're passionate about, that gives you fulfillment, that you enjoy, and you're making a living as an artist. And quite honestly, there's a lot of artists out there who struggle because it's hard to be an artist and to make a living out of it, but it's also, you can tell it's not about the money. It's never really about that. It's, do you enjoy what you do? Are you passionate about what you do? And does it fill you in a way that you're like content and you're like, wow, I actually enjoy this. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's why I admire your message and how you're saying, like, that's why I do what I do for 12 hours if I have to, because I enjoy it. It gives me, a chance to just do it for the rest of my life and not have the regret of having to look back and say, man, why did I do that? So I'm really curious to also ask you a little bit about, what is kind of your goal, because you're doing this challenge. We're on day 51. We said, right? I think it's day 51. But what is it that you're trying to also convey through this challenge to other people on your Study With Me stream?
Okay, so I started the stream 51 days ago, but the challenge is a 30 days challenge. So the challenge is not for me. The challenge is for people who are joining, my channel and are trying to do. It was actually an experiment that I tried to do to bring people from my Instagram to YouTube, and also to make people a bit more excited about the idea. Yeah. And it's helping a lot of people because the idea was, you enter a group, and inside this group, I think we have 70 people, and inside the group, you have to say how much you're going to study, for how long, and at what time of the day for 30 days. That's the only thing that you have to do. Like, you put yourself, you write the information and you send to the group, so that the group can know if you did it or not, right? And then the only thing that people have to do is to enter the stream, and then they put a check mark when they end up studying. Like, if they study the 50-minute session, they at the end can type something like, hello, I was there, or just a check mark. And the idea is very simple, and I didn't want to control anyone's life. It's just a matter of making people a bit more willing to do the things that they want to do. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not. You can read a book. You can do anything. Like, you can exercise. Like, I don't care. Like, it's something that it's meant to help you. Like, that's the only thing. Like, you want to do something for 30 days, and that's it. And a lot of people dropped it. Like. In the first few days, and that's okay. And a lot of people dropped it in the first few weeks. And now I think we have, 5 or 6 people, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, who are still participating. And I think it's a good representation of what we're talking, right? Maybe even if you want to do something and you tell other people that you're going to do something, you might not be able to do that. And that's a whole other discussion, actually. And to get there, you would have to go a bit deeper. But the goal of the challenge is really not for me, because I wanted to propose a collective challenge so that at the end, everyone would celebrate together. But now I think the celebration will be very small, actually.
Hey, but you know what? It's okay. You can still celebrate. It's all good.
Actually, yeah. The most important is not the size, it's the intention,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Exactly, exactly. Well, hey, and Arthur, thank again. I just want to like seriously, and we've had discussions where you and I've talked on and off, through like the live stream and things like that. You've actually helped me out with a lot of Portuguese, so I appreciate that, by the way, because that is like a lifelong thing for me. I want to be able to learn about um, different languages. So,
Cool.
which leads me to my next question for you. And for those of you who are watching right now, please, if you have a question for Arthur, please go ahead and put it in the chat as Steady with Sabrina has graciously actually kind of put how you should put it in the chat, and then I will get those questions, and then we can have a little bit of a Q&A with Arthur in just a little bit if you have questions, of course. So, but Arthur, one of the things that I find unique about who you are is your approach in terms of being able to communicate with people, right? And I find it fascinating because you know how to speak more than one language, and obviously you can speak English, and you're able to speak Portuguese. Could you tell us a little bit about your process in being able to speak these languages, and what else goes into that, and why you chose to do all those languages?
Okay, so I think that learning a new language opens a lot of possibilities for you. Um, I had an experience that I told you facts already, which was this trip to Japan. And I am Brazilian. I don't speak Japanese, but my grandparents were from Japan. So I have a sort of bond to the Japanese culture. And I know that like almost my entire family came from Japan.
Hmm.
And then I went to Japan and I expected to have a very deep dive into how things worked, about on how people, I don't know, would think about the world, how people would see me as a Brazilian Japanese that left, like whose family left
Yeah.
Japan and then is now touring Japan, something a bit crazy, and I really didn't know exactly what to expect, but I really wanted to know more about the culture, about the day-to-day life. Uh, and then I couldn't because they don't speak English that well. The majority of them, actually, in a 1 month trip, I just had one very interesting conversation in English with a Japanese person, and that was because she lived in Canada, so she could speak English very fluently.
Hmm.
And if you don't have the language as a bridge to reach other people's souls, you're pretty much done after how old are you, where are you from, what do you like to do, I don't know, it's very simple. You can't get in a more profound place, and I
Yeah.
think to build relationships you have to,
Mm.
otherwise it's just like any other relationship that you have in the streets or at the school, I don't know. But I was very frustrated because I learned a lot, it was a life-changing trip, but it was very sad as well because I wanted to chat with people in a more profound way and I couldn't. So I decided that I would try to learn as much languages as possible to be able to do that in different countries.
Hmm.
So I learned Spanish, which is very useful in Latin America and obviously Spain. But if you travel to Latin America with Spanish, you can handle yourself in Brazil and you can talk in other countries, right? Also French, because I had this experience going to France and performing in France, and I I was I stayed in a shared flat with 17 French students, and only two of them could speak English. So in France, you might think that they speak a very good English, but they don't like to speak English because they're
Right.
superior. But it's not the case. Like they don't know how to speak English. They don't feel comfortable speaking English, and they simply don't speak, and they like pretend that they don't want to speak. But it's like I feel like the way I feel about being in France and trying to speak English is that it's a sort of arrogance. Uh, but it is actually because they don't feel secure enough, confident enough to speak English, to communicate themselves in English, and to understand English. So I think it's more a defensive approach.
Yeah.
So I decided to learn French to be able to like have conversations, to perform in French cities, and the audience could understand. And the kind of connection that you build if you're performing and talking with people in their native language, that's very unique. And and then I started learning German I don't know, 6 months ago, a bit more maybe, because also I started learning in Graz, which is a city in Austria. A friend of mine was studying, and I started learning a little bit. And I really like to study languages. That's one of the things that relates to what we're talking. I mean, if you hate studying languages, there's really no reason if you're not going to use it in a close future to do that. But I think I found a method for myself that can make it more likable, and that's very simple. I study, and for years I did that. Now I do it a little bit different, and I studied only during my lunch. So I would lunch and I would listen to something in French, and I did it for years, and then I learned French. And I would also sometimes talk with myself. I think that's a great way to learn any language. You just keep speaking alone about anything that you want, because then you learn how to speak a new language using the words that you would use in yours, so that you can translate the way you talk, because the language is not only vocabulary, it's not only grammar, it's also something related to the way people talk, right? And the way you think is probably different from the way people from another country think. So you can adapt your thinking to another person's language. So it's a very interesting way to get to know also a little bit more about yourself, because then you understand the things you say the most, the things that you're more used to the paths in terms of language that you're more used to go through, and it's a very nice thing to do. Like for me at least, doing speaking by myself in German, it's been a lot of fun. I'm not mastering the language yet, but it's really nice to have someone in the stream that is from Germany, and we can have a little chat, you know,
Right.
even if it's my language that I'm a bit, skating around with. It's something that it's fun for me,
Right.
and I think it's not for everyone. But if you try to make it fun, maybe it becomes. Another good tip in regards to learning language specs is that if you expose yourself to the language through context, then you can learn much faster. I have this friend, he can speak, I don't know, 10 languages, including Chinese, Japanese, all the Western, like, most important languages. He's a guy that I really admire
Wow.
as a polyglot. And he's super intelligent. Like, he writes poetry in Chinese. Like, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's amazing.
yeah.
I don't know, when you said poetry in Chinese, I was like, wait, what? How?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it happens, but how? Like, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't fathom that. Sorry, that's like the math equation thing. I just can't.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I didn't understand anything when he explained me, but I know it's super, it's super interesting. And he told me about this strategy that it's like exposing yourself to the language, even if you don't understand a single word.
Yeah.
So you can watch a lot of series, a lot of films in the language that I want to learn, and just keep watching it without subtitles in any language, just as we learn our first language, right? Like if you're a baby, you're just trying to pick up some words here and there, and then suddenly you have words that you can form in sentences. And that's what he recommended me to do, and I did it in all the languages that I've learned.
Hmm.
So I think it's a very good strategy, but it's not easy because it's you feel like you're very stupid at the beginning, and you have to deal with this feeling, which is another good exercise, psychologically speaking, right?
Right.
And you feel stupid like every second, you don't understand anything, like obvious words. And then after 1 month doing that, 2 months, 6 months, you start understanding like 90% of it without even realizing. You understand words that you didn't study. That's crazy. That's the crazy part. And I think it's a very useful method to learn. I think that those are the three things that I do to learn languages.
And I mean, first of all, I admire people who take the approach that you've taken about learning new languages, because you want to break that barrier so that you can be able to communicate with people, you want to understand their culture, why they do what they do, so that there's good communication, there's good positive, kind of like a good positive message and understanding of each other. And I think ultimately that's why I want to accomplish like learning Portuguese as more of a lifelong type of thing versus well, it's just one semester. I don't want to
Yeah.
do the one semester and then I'm done type of thing. I want to accomplish understanding a culture so that I can be, and what you're saying is you need to be immersed in that
Yeah.
culture. You have to take that approach. If you're not taking that approach, it becomes harder, and then you do feel a little bit more distant. And that's where the motivation, if you will, of wanting to learn a language goes away, because then you're
Yeah.
no longer like, well, I tried, there's nobody to like, practice with. And so I actually love the fact that you brought that up. You said, well, then talk to yourself. And
Yeah.
quite honestly, for me, like when I was a little kid, I learned French, Spanish, and English all at the same time, and I was doing fine. I don't think it was Italian. Was it Italian? It doesn't matter. The point is that I was learning those languages, and I was talking with my older brother about it, and just having conversation, little conversation. But over time, because he had to move on to college, I lost it. I completely stopped talking in that language because I didn't take that approach. Now, of course, I'm a little kid at that point, but for those of us who are actually a little bit older, who can understand what's happening here, I think it's really important to take that mindset of, if you have no one to talk with, first of all,
Yeah.
it would help you to reach out to someone and talk with them. So you can try that approach. The other approach is what you're saying is talk to yourself, practice, and along the lines of what you were talking about with German.
Yeah.
I feel like that right now with, like, well, perhaps not necessarily exactly like that, but with Portuguese, it's because I'm learning and it's so close to Spanish. That's why I'm
Yeah.
like, I have to second
Yeah.
guess myself, like,
Yeah. You have a
like,
very good accent. I told you that, right?
yeah, well, and I try to not even like, because there's way, that's the thing. The language is so close, and there's certain words that actually mean one thing here and another thing here, and it could
Yeah.
actually be offensive. So and there are moments that I heard something in Portuguese and I was like, "What?" Like, that's a bad thing in Spanish, because I'm from the context of a Spanish speaker, right?
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, my first language was Spanish. So when I hear something in Portuguese and I'm like, that's a bad thing, Um, anyways, I digress. All that to say is that I think it's important to learn these languages so that you break that barrier between you and another person from another country, Um, and I think that by doing something like that, you're taking yourself aside and putting them first. You're caring for a person enough to say that, you know what, I care actually about you. It's not about me, but it's about you, and how we can make this work. And I think if more people took the time to do that, how different our world would be. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
and so I love and admire the fact that you do that, on your channel, and you're willing to have that kind of conversation with people, in different languages. And I gotta say that's wonderful. We are a little bit kind of cutting close to our end here, but I want to bring in a couple of questions that Study with Sabrina gave me from the chat. So if you don't mind, we can maybe kind of just go through either comments or questions. And if you guys still have questions in the chat, please feel free to put them in, and then I'll see if I can even look for them myself. So about the start, Study with Sabrina said, Ozzy Osbourne said the same thing happened to him when Black Sabbath started. People didn't pay attention to him. So it was in reference to what you were talking about earlier in the stream, how like you were up on stage and nobody seemed to care, you know? So it was a really good comment.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. And this is actually coming from Lyria. Lyria, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate that. The question is, Arthur, how do you imagine your career in 5 years?
Okay, that's a very well thought question, because I did propose this exercise to some of my students recently, and Lydia knows about it. So
Good job, Lyria. Noted.
Yeah, so a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I want to accomplish, but I think there are some projects that I'm working towards that are very important to me, and they're probably going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years, from recording to launch and tour. And this will be my next CD, which is going to be recorded whenever the pandemic allows it. It will be recorded in Portugal, so I have to wait until they will let Brazilians enter, and that's probably not going to happen very soon. And then when I recorded, I will have to prepare the launch, and then I will tour. So that's a process that is probably going to take at least 2 years, and maybe, depending on how things change or not change here, maybe 3 years. So that's the majority of this process. After, I really want to start working with songs with lyrics, right? I am an instrumentalist. I always play the guitar. That's how people see me. I am a guitar player. I'm sort of classic, I'm sort of Brazilian, and all my concerts are instrumental concerts. All my CDs and my projects are instrumental. But I have this child dream, of working as a songwriter. And I don't know, it's not something that I thought a lot about, if I want to sing my own songs, but the act of composing with lyrics makes me feel a different sensation than I always than any other than I had with instrumental music. Like, I cried, I don't know, 100 times composing songs with lyrics, and it never happened with instrumental music.
Wow.
And very, very, yeah, there is this relationship with the word and with the poetry and with the songs that have lyrics that seems more attached to my soul. I think the guitar part is sort of my work as I don't know, the thing that I am supposed to do with my life, that I love and that I feel good about doing, and I have some kind of ease doing it. And the part of the songwriting would be more like, that's what my heart or my child commands. That's something that I have to try. That's something that relates to what we were talking about. Like, no one expects me to do that. Like, no one wants me to do that, right? They want me to continue to play the guitar and keep developing. But I think that I can do both things. And that's why I'm dedicating myself to songwriting for, 6 months. And I never showed my songs to public. I did show to 1 or 2 friends, but it's like, I want to go through a process of improving at it, getting to taste it a little bit, to understand who am I as a composer of a song, as a songwriter, to then I don't know, try to be praised for that. You know, I think too many people try to get compliments for things that they just started,
Yeah.
and I want to like have the opposite approach. I want to like dedicate, I don't know, 1,000 hours to it, and then start showing as something that I'm very confident about.
Mm. And you know what? For me, I think because I'm an instrumentalist as well, just like you. I play different instruments, and I've always I've always considered myself that way. I've never really considered myself a songwriter, but since I was like, I suppose as early as 6 years old, 7 years old, I tried to write lyrics. I That was always one of the things I really wanted to do. I'm not a singer though. That's what's crazy. Like I know I'm not a singer. I know I'm not a singer. so but there is something that is fascinating about putting the pen to the paper and writing something that just connects the mind to the heart. And
Yeah.
and when you do that, you'll find that there's so many people out there who find, I call it relatable conflict. And the relatable conflict is that there's sometimes an artist that describes something, that puts something into words in a way that you're like, wow, that really resonates with me. And I think that's what the power of music, that's the power of spoken word. I think these things are really important to have, and I've been wanting to do songwriting as well. So all I'm saying is like I appreciate the fact that you want to do this, and this is part of the challenge for you, but you want to dedicate 1,000 hours to it and just be like, you know what,
Yeah, I didn't do the math. Like it's just it was just an example. Like, I'm not that pragmatic. You know, it's like
well, no, but to say like more than anything, it's just like you found something that you're like, this is amazing. This is where I feel like I maybe want to go in a new direction with the kind of music that I'm producing, I'm making, And so,
yeah.
so like I'm with you on that, and I think a lot of people will resonate with that as well. Let's look at just a couple of questions more. I think we have a couple more.
Okay.
Sarah Roberts has a question, and her question is, Arthur, do you ever struggle with perfectionism? I know this plagues a lot of people who are artists, musicians, and students. How do you overcome that?
Okay, that's a very good question. I had a very perfectionist approach for a long time as a student because I feel that I think that I wanted to prove to other people that I was good. That was what I wanted. Like I wanted to play very well. I wanted to be a great guitar player. And when I performed, I wanted to be the person who will be admired for playing super well. And I think when you're trying to prove other people things, when you're trying to be validated by other people's opinions about you,
Mm,
you're already going to a path that is going to to be a wall. You know, it's not going to go further than like what other people think about you. It's like something that you have to overcome
yeah.
sooner or later. And I think when I understood that that was what I was pursuing, I started to change a little bit my way of seeing music, not as something that would validate me to other people, but as something that could connect my work with other people's feelings, like that could actually produce something good in people, like hope, like a moment of relief, or anything like some sadness. Maybe it's also positive in art. We experiment a lot of it, and it helps to deal with a lot of things as well. We listen to sad songs, we watch sad movies, and it's an important part of the experience of having a relationship with a work of art. So I think that if you, I don't know, it's hard to say because I would really like to have more information about where this perfectionism comes from,
Mm.
but it normally comes, and that's my observation, from the desire of um, looking good in other people's eyes.
Yeah.
And if you can detach from that and you can follow your path with a bit more intensity, like, I don't give a damn about what other people think. Like, I
Yeah.
want to do that. If everyone hates, like, I want to do this songwriting project, everyone can hate me for it.
Mm.
And I don't care because I will cry in my room and think that I'm doing something awesome, you know? And it really doesn't matter. Like, if you can get to this point in which, like, it's of course that it has some impact in what you do. Like, if you receive 1,000 negative comments on a video, it's probably, uh, there is probably something that is annoying people. But I think the most important part is to understand what is your goal, and who you're trying to please, you know, because there is normally one person. Like, it can be your parents, it can be uh, your loved ones, it can be, I don't know, anyone, your teachers, your peers. In music, that's very common, actually. You get, I don't know, to a certain level of your music career, and then you have to play in a certain way to please the people who are above you, you know? If you do something very different, then people will say, oh, he does that, and it's very different from what we do, so we're not going to value that. That we actually can talk to all of our friends who are also in this very high position, that this guy is not going to enter the club, you know, this kind of thing. uh, if you care about this sort of thing, it's the same thing as we were talking earlier, but in a different level. Like,
Right.
you are a musician. You decided that you're a musician, but then when you get to the point of working with music, you decide to do musically the thing that everyone else is doing. You're doing the same thing as if you would be a lawyer without wanting to be a lawyer, right?
Right.
Just in another layer, you know? So I think the same concept applies to every layer. And if you can be as genuine with your own thoughts and your own desires as possible, you can somehow uh, gain some freedom from
Hmm.
this feeling.
Absolutely. And we have another question, and this is from Lydia. Lydia, thank you so much for your question. How do you avoid mixing languages when you start learning your third language? Sometimes I am thinking in English and translating an expression to Portuguese that doesn't exist, and vice versa.
Hmm. Okay, that's very nice, Lydia. Thank you for the question. I don't know if I'm very good at not doing that.
Well, I mean, Lydia, if I can answer the question, I'm terrible at it, if that makes you feel any better. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, Arthur, how do you feel?
I think the one tip I would be able to give you is not to think in your original language.
Mm,
And if that isn't easy, but you could try to think in the language that you're learning, so that you won't mix things.
yeah.
Like, I am super bad at German. I can have a conversation, but it's not a very deep conversation. But I always try to think only in German when I'm talking. Like, I don't think in English and then translate to German, or in Portuguese and then translate. I just think in German. If
Mhm.
I don't have the word, and I don't have the word, but I try to put the to walk towards this track, and only using the German words that I know. And I
Right.
think that's a good way to enter a language like fully, and not like have some ways of working our way around the language, as many people do with English, right? If you go to Germany or France or any country, actually, and
Mhm.
you have the English language, which can like serve you as a sort of help in any situation. Like, you're buying something and you don't know the word in German, and then you immediately switch to English. That's something that will make you learn a bit slower. So
Mm.
if you can, like, just embrace the idea of speaking in the language that you want to learn 100%, I think it can help.
Yeah. I'm in the mode right now where I and I have to put this up for a second. Lydia is saying my brain is becoming a trilingual mess right now. Because she's
That's a very good mess.
yeah, it is. It's a hot mess, but it's good. I don't know.
Good, yeah.
I was told because this is the approach I was taking, and I talked with you, Arthur, about this a little bit, but I was taking the approach of I know English. Clearly, it's not the best English, but it's English. I know Spanish, and I'm starting to kind of relearn the parts that I didn't really get in my 1/2 semester of college Portuguese.
Okay.
but I'm learning a little bit of Portuguese and Italian and French. So here's the thing. For me personally, I find it that it is perhaps a slower process in some ways. If you were to attempt to learn all these different languages at the same time, but that's also a good challenge to be able to go from one, and you talk about this, Arthur, to go from one to the next and just challenge yourself to do that because now I think the uniqueness of this particular, if you will, hot mess of different languages is I know bits and pieces of Portuguese, I know bits and pieces of Italian and things like that. So my goal is to do the best I can to learn with it, but to not stay stuck on it because that's actually not helpful in the learning process. That's why we call, active recall in academia that eventually your mind will go back to that and it'll remember like, oh, this is what this means. And what helps me personally, because I have a foundation in Spanish, is that a lot of the languages are kind of the romantic, languages, if you will. So they all kind of are rooted in the same type of framework. And I think that's what helps is to be able to speak those languages because there's connections. There's really close connections. Now, it is harder if you're learning English or I'm sorry, if you're speaking English, but you're learning other languages, that's where it does become a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, because there's no framework. You have no foundation. It's really only English. So if you were to go into those other languages, it does become a little bit harder. But if you're already speaking those other languages and then going to English, y- that's another that's another conversation we could talk about because it becomes really difficult to do that too because English likes and I've said this to you and we laughed about it a little bit but English likes to borrow and say like, oh yeah, I'll take that and then make it its own. So but anyways, thank you guys so much for the questions. I think there was one more question and I want to just touch on this real quick. I and I think it was we had already touched on that question and that was from Lydia. So yeah, thank you Lydia for that question. And guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us and getting to know Arthur. And Arthur, I mean, this was a pleasure. For me, it was awesome to be able to talk with you for this live stream. I would really love for you to possibly even come back in future, podcasts to talk about other things. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the study with me, series, if you will. But because this still we talk about education. That's really the goal of this channel. But I'd love to talk about music and the connection in education with that, and just to have you back, I think would be a real treat. So I just want to thank you. Seriously, this has been wonderful.
Thank you, Pax. That was very nice indeed, and I really appreciate the invitation. And I really appreciate your energy, Pax. You are a very good interviewer. You're a very generous person.
Thank
It's
you.
really nice to have a chat with you.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna go turn more red in just a second. Um, so because I can see my face right now, it's got like this hue of red, and I'm not sure why, because I'm not really that red in real life, folks, in real life. But the lighting, it's the lighting, and so now I'm like really red. So Arthur, seriously, this was an honor. It was an honor. And guys, thank you for those of you who are in the chat. Thank you so much for your questions. Definitely, please make sure to go to Arthur's channel, Arthur Endo, if you put that into the search. And we will also, if I can have maybe Study with Sabrina, if you're still around, if you can provide the link. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have the link in the description. See, I planned ahead. I have all of Arthur's information in the description below. And guys, I want to say that we're going to be doing this more often. As a matter of fact, every Wednesday up until the middle of September, we're going to be having podcast interviews weekly. And I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking with people like Arthur, who really have so much to give into this community of Study With Me streams. And like I said, Arthur, I don't know. I think you're great. I think you're an awesome person. You have such great passion and such, I would say, wisdom in providing like that motivation that we need, you know, because like this whole conversation, I was like, man, I'm going to go write a song. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up our time. But of course, remember, be kind and rewind. Have a good one. Hope to see you next week. Hadouken!